On the surface, teenagers are supposed to embody possibilities, school dances, first crushes, plans for the future. But sometimes, innocence takes a dark and deadly turn. Across the United States, a shocking reality continues to haunt communities. Children, some as young as 12 or 13, committing acts of brutal violence, including murder. The courtroom becomes the stage where society must wrestle with the ultimate question. What should be done with them? Do we treat them as children who made mistakes, or as adults who must face the full weight of their crimes? One of the earliest cases to stir national outrage was Lionel Tate, a 12-year-old from Florida who, in 1999, beat a 6-year-old girl to death while imitating wrestling moves he had seen on TV. At the time, Tate became the youngest American ever sentenced to life in prison without parole. The public was divided. Was he a child who didn't fully understand the consequences of his actions, or a budding monster who deserved punishment? This dilemma isn't unique to Tate's case. Time and time again, headlines scream with stories of teen killers, some acting in fits of rage, others carefully plotting their crimes with chilling calculation. Each case forces society to confront the uncomfortable truth: youth does not always equal innocence. Psychologists argue that a teenager's brain is not fully developed, especially in areas of judgment and impulse control. This scientific fact complicates everything. If a teen killer cannot fully comprehend their decisions the way an adult can, should they be locked away forever? Or does that deny them the chance to change and grow? For families of victims, however, the debate feels like a cruel insult. Their loved ones are gone forever. The pain is permanent. Why should the offender, just because of age, be offered leniency? For many, justice is clear. Punishment must fit the crime, regardless of whether the killer is 14 or 40. This tug-of-war between rehabilitation and revenge lies at the very heart of every trial involving a teen murderer. As we dive deeper into these cases, we'll see how judges, juries, and the public struggle to balance morality, science, and justice in ways that often leave scars that never heal. And as you'll soon discover, the answers are never simple. When a teenager is accused of murder, the courtroom becomes more than a place of law. It transforms into a battlefield where society's deepest fears and strongest emotions clash. On one side, prosecutors often paint the young defendant as a cold-blooded killer who knew exactly what they were doing. On the other, defense attorneys argue that age, immaturity, and circumstance clouded their judgment. The stakes? Nothing less than a life sentence, sometimes without parole. A case that shook the nation. Take, for example, the story of Ethan Reyes, a 15-year-old who was charged with the stabbing death of a classmate. His trial became a lightning rod for public debate. News headlines screamed, "Teen killer," while others asked, was he a victim too? In court, the prosecution brought up chilling evidence: social media posts showing Ethan posing with knives, angry messages exchanged before the attack, and testimony from classmates who claimed he had planned the assault. They painted him as manipulative, dangerous, and beyond saving. But the defense countered with a starkly different image. A boy with an unstable home, years of bullying, and untreated mental health issues. His lawyer asked the jury, "Do we punish the child he was, or the adult we fear he will become?" The courtroom gasped when Ethan's mother testified through tears, begging the jury to see her son as more than the crime. "He's not a monster," she said. "He's my baby." The sentencing dilemma. This was the crux of the trial. Should Ethan be treated as a juvenile, with the possibility of rehabilitation, or tried as an adult, condemned to spend decades behind bars? Prosecutors argued that releasing him at 21 would put society at risk. Defense attorneys insisted that locking him away forever meant society had already given up on second chances. The judge's ruling reflected a larger national debate. In the end, Ethan was sentenced to 30 years in prison, long enough that he wouldn't walk free until middle age. But the decision divided the courtroom. Some felt justice had been served. Others believed another child had been thrown away by a broken system. The bigger picture. This wasn't just Ethan's story, it was America's. Across the country, cases like his forced juries, judges, and entire communities to wrestle with impossible questions. Can teenagers truly understand the weight of taking a life? Should we measure justice by the severity of the crime or the potential for change? And most haunting of all, what if we get it wrong? In many ways, the courtroom is where the battle between rehabilitation and revenge begins. But as we'll see in the next chapter, the prison system takes that battle to a whole new level. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. The heavy iron doors slam shut, and with that sound, a teenager's life changes forever. For most people, prison is synonymous with hardened criminals, violent gangs, and years of survival behind walls. But for a 15 or 16-year-old, stepping into a juvenile detention center is like entering a world that strips away innocence in an instant. Inside, the atmosphere is tense. The walls are painted with calming colors, an attempt to make the facility feel less like a prison and more like a rehabilitation center. But the reality is different. Razor wire still surrounds the perimeter, guards keep watch with sharp eyes, and the young offenders know they are not free. A double life inside juvenile prisons. Juvenile facilities are designed differently from adult prisons. Here, the emphasis, at least on paper, is on rehabilitation. Classrooms replace cell blocks, therapy sessions are part of the schedule, and some teenagers even have access to art and sports programs. But make no mistake, this is still incarceration. For many teen murderers, this environment creates a confusing balance. Part punishment, part opportunity. Some embrace the second chance, working hard to learn skills, finish school, or attend therapy. Others, however, see juvenile detention as just another battlefield, where cliques form, fights break out, and survival instincts sharpen. Stories from the inside. Take the story of Michael, sentenced at 14 for a brutal stabbing. Inside juvenile prison, he was offered counseling to explore his violent impulses and family trauma. Over time, he learned to read, completed his GED, and started painting, something he had never tried before. His counselors described him as a success story, proof that rehabilitation was possible. But then there's Daniel, also just 15 when he killed a neighbor during a robbery. In detention, Daniel became more violent. He joined a prison gang, fought regularly, and refused to attend classes. By the time he turned 18, he was transferred to an adult prison. Hardened, angry, and more dangerous than ever. These two stories highlight the central question. Can a system built for punishment truly change someone who has committed the ultimate crime at such a young age? The science of second chances. Psychologists argue that adolescence is a critical stage in brain development. Studies show that teenagers' brains are not fully developed, especially the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for decision-making and impulse control. This science fuels the belief that with the right guidance, therapy, and support, young offenders can change. But the reality is often more complicated. Overcrowding, lack of funding, and inconsistent programs leave many juveniles slipping through the cracks. Instead of rehabilitation, they are exposed to more violence, deeper trauma, and the stigma of being labeled a murderer. A system under fire. Critics argue that juvenile detention can feel like a holding pen rather than a place of healing. Some facilities lean more toward punishment, strict schedules, solitary confinement, and limited opportunities. Others genuinely invest in rehabilitation, offering mentorship programs and pathways back to society. For families of victims, however, none of this feels like justice. To them, seeing a teenager in a classroom instead of a prison cell feels like betrayal. "My daughter is gone forever," one grieving parent once said, "and her killer gets art therapy? That's not justice." And this is where the tension deepens. The battle between society's desire for rehabilitation and the victim's family's cry for punishment. Turning point. Every day behind bars for these young offenders is a test. Some will walk out as adults with a new sense of direction. Others will leave more broken than when they arrived. What happens behind those walls, whether it's healing or hardening, will determine not only their futures but also how society views juvenile justice itself. By the second week of Amelia Hart's disappearance, pressure was mounting on investigators. The case had gone viral, dominating news cycles and racking up millions of views online. Everyone wanted answers, but all the public had was speculation, whispers, and theories spiraling out of control. Then a breakthrough. Detectives announced they had identified a person of interest, Ethan Cole, a 28-year-old IT contractor who had once moderated Amelia's livestream chat. At first glance, Ethan seemed harmless, a quiet man who lived alone in a small Minneapolis apartment. But as investigators dug deeper, a disturbing picture began to form. Digital footprints. Forensic teams traced the deleted "We're watching you" Amelia message back to an IP address linked to Ethan's home. Obsession online. Screenshots recovered from private fan groups revealed that Ethan had posted dozens of comments about Amelia, sometimes praising her, other times growing angry when she ignored him. Unsettling evidence. When police executed a search warrant, they discovered a hard drive containing hours of Amelia's live streams, downloaded and meticulously archived. More chillingly, Ethan had saved candid photos of Amelia that were never posted publicly. Still, Ethan denied everything. He told investigators he was simply a superfan, and the message in the livestream chat was a prank by someone else. His alibi for the night of Amelia's disappearance was shaky at best. He claimed to have been home playing video games, but no one could verify it. Meanwhile, internet sleuths felt vindicated. Many had suspected Ethan early on, pointing to his unusual activity in Amelia's chat rooms. Reddit threads exploded with theories, timelines, and amateur profiles of his behavior. But investigators were cautious. They knew that while Ethan looked guilty, circumstantial evidence wasn't enough. And in the frenzy of public attention, they worried about the case collapsing under the weight of speculation. Then came the most chilling discovery. A blurred figure captured in traffic camera footage near Amelia's apartment the night she vanished. Investigators enhanced the image, and the man's outline, height, and build matched Ethan Cole. For Amelia's followers, this was it, the moment they had been waiting for. But for detectives, the stakes were higher than ever. They weren't just chasing a suspect. They were racing against time, still unsure if Amelia was alive or if her story had already ended in tragedy. And then, almost by accident, a single piece of evidence shifted the entire investigation. Teen murderers sit at the darkest crossroads of human behavior and human potential. They are young enough to still be shaped by the world around them, yet old enough to have committed acts so devastating that families and communities will never fully heal. Every trial, every headline, and every sentence handed down becomes part of a larger debate that refuses to fade. For some, justice means life in prison without the possibility of parole, ensuring that society never risks letting a killer walk free again. For others, justice means allowing young offenders to face their mistakes, work toward rehabilitation, and prove that change is possible. The truth is, there is no one-size-fits-all answer. Some teenagers who kill will never show remorse, never change, and remain a threat. Others, however, may genuinely transform behind prison walls, growing into adults who no longer resemble the angry, reckless children they once were. This is what makes these cases so haunting. Every sentence, every decision, is a gamble with futures. The future of the victim's family, the future of society, and the future of a teenager who crossed a line that can never be undone. As the years pass, the question remains suspended in the air, unanswered. Do we treat these young killers as criminals beyond redemption, or as children who still deserve a chance to rewrite their story? Perhaps the hardest truth is this: whatever choice society makes, it comes with a cost. A cost paid in grief, in anger, in hope, and in the uneasy silence of knowing that justice for one side may never feel like justice for the other. And so the debate continues, because when the killer is a kid, justice will never look the same again. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell.